Welcome to a lightning lesson on how product managers use AI to simulate other people. We have today an all-star cast with Ben, former Meta, with Jack, who is just incredible coach and so somebody I learned a ton from, Ziv coming to us from Microsoft, and me. So this is what we're gonna do. This is the order we're gonna do it. I already wasted 2 minutes of our time just enjoying the music. We're gonna start off. I'm gonna do a demo of how to use AI to help us with difficult stakeholder meetings, and Ben's gonna go and show us how to prepare for big tech candidate interviews with AI. Ziv is going to show us synthetic users and ChatGPT and how to build them from a blank thread from complete scratch. And then Jack is going to take us home and help us prepare for difficult, scary feedback sessions or feedback conversations. And because we're trying to pack a lot of content and a lot of demos into a very short amount of time, we're going to put all the Q&A at the end. So use the Zoom chat and just like anytime you have a question throughout the session, put your question in the Zoom chat. If you see a question that you really want to make sure that we answer at the end so we can prioritize it, use emojis. So use your emojis to upvote and draw attention to questions you really want to see us answer. And that's it. So Jack, can you set a timer for me? There we go. Perfect. All right, so I'm going to start off. We're going to talk about preparing for difficult stakeholder conversations. So hi, my name is Tal, and it's been 37 days since I said no to a stakeholder. So jokes aside, it's been a lot longer than that since I last was at Riverside, but I think that's something that many of us as PMs can relate to and resonate with. I personally have definitely come to stakeholder meetings with a lot of baggage of my own. I've definitely remember feeling defensive before the conversation even starts. I have definitely spent a lot of time worrying about, well, what if happens if we disagree? Who's going to make the call? Whose call is it? I'm a PM. And I've definitely lost quite a few hours of sleep catastrophizing and kind of like replaying in my head past conversations and what's going to happen. And you add to all of that, what just puts the pressure on is, in my head, I'm like, oh, and I definitely cannot afford another escalation with my name in it. Doesn't matter who is right, or anything like that. So, yeah, and of course, I need to say, most of my relationship with stakeholders, with the vast majority of stakeholders, are good. They're not free of conflict, but the conflict is the kind that strengthens us. But I think all of us can relate to. There's always any company you're at. There's always like at least one or two stakeholders where it's just really hard to get that relationship off the ground. Really hard to build that emotional bank account, to build that trust. Those conversations just don't naturally get easier. So the way we're going to practice for that and improve our skills there as product managers is in two ways. First, we're going to have AI play the stakeholder. So just very naturally simulate the other person, and we're going to talk to them. And then we're going to turn things around, and we're going to have AI play us, and we're going to play the stakeholder. And we've all heard the phrase, have the meeting before the meeting, right? Now we're going to do that with AI as well. So the goal of what I'm about to show you is that we arrive at the real meeting more, I don't know how else to say this, emotionally mature, more prepared, feeling much more open to genuine empathy. And the most important thing, honestly, of any kind of conversation, regardless of the action items or the results, is that the other person feels genuinely heard. So we're going to take a scenario here, and that is, I've just pulled this out of thin air. I don't think it's ever happened to me. It definitely never happened to anybody else here. I just made this up. Marketing has some ideas for the onboarding. Like I said, totally asking for a friend. All right, so I'm gonna screen share my full screen now. And you guys see the two sides of the screen, Jack? Nod? Cool. All right, so I'm gonna go to, this is my Copilot playbook we use in the course. I'm gonna go down to here, hard conversations, simulate one-on-one stakeholder meeting. So here on the right, I'm inside of Claude. I'm inside of a project, and ChatGPT also has projects. Gemini has gems. It's just a nice way of organizing things and giving context and instructions. If you're curious kind of what I've done to set this up, I have another Lenny lesson. I'll send the link out afterwards, how I set up my Copilot as a project. But for now, we're just going to dive in, and I can start with this prompt, which is help me simulate a stakeholder meeting, right? And I'm going to say, make up a name with the new head of marketing, Frank, and prepare in advance. And here's the goals. And all right, I'm going to get rid of hard mode. I do not want to, do not plan on crying on camera today. So I'm not going to have Frank try to trigger me. But I do want, this meeting is scheduled. What is it about? All I know is that Frank has a bunch of ideas for onboarding. He's really excited. He's been at the company for a few months and he scheduled this meeting. He didn't tell me exactly what the ideas are, but he wants to pitch it kind of to get it prioritized on the near-term roadmap. All right, so I use dictation there. That's just, there's lots of ways of doing it. For ChatGPT, it's built in. So that's like a plugin I download for my Mac. And the last instruction is I really want the AI Copilot to act as a coach and give me kind of like these like out of simulation notes. So we're going to see that as well. So let's dive right in. It's probably going to ask me a few questions usually, just to like kind of get a little bit more context out of me and kind of just prepare the simulation before we start. So, okay, I think I got enough context, so it just started off. And it's basically starting off as Frank. It's playing Frank. Thanks for making time for this meeting. I've been diving into our flows. I'm seeing a lot of drop off. I'd love to get these prioritized, right? We've all had this conversation. Hey, Frank, that's really awesome. I'm so excited that you're thinking so deeply about this, and I'd love to hear the ideas. I will say that I'm getting a little nervous because we just have so much planned this quarter, and quarterly planning just finished, and we kind of made these public commitments, and leadership already kind of like told us what we're working on. So I don't know if it'll be able to happen this quarter, but let's start talking about it now. All right. You guys can decide if my response, how you feel, if that was a good example of a PM responding or not. Let's see what the Copilot says. So you'll notice that it gives me Frank's response in the simulation, but it's also giving me a coaching note, right? It says, you know, you're being polite, but you're starting with caution rather than curiosity. So how about you try to first understand the full context and why this is important to Frank, right? That wasn't a great response from me to Frank. So what is Frank is saying? You understand you have your commitments. I really believe these ideas could have an impact. We've done some homework. We've put up together a proposal. We've sketched some designs. I think we just need 2 to 3 weeks of engineering time. The ultimate trigger sentence for a PM. This is without hard mode on. And I'll say, so okay, so the coach says try to first understand the full context. Well, it sounds like you guys have really dug into this and done a lot of homework. I'd love to hear more about that. But I will say, I just really feel that we should really have our eyes towards the next quarter of planning. Again, not the best response as a PM. Frank looks slightly disappointed and has clearly done a lot of homework and has clearly done his data. And the coach is telling me I'm still in a defensive posture rather than exploratory. And he's giving me advice. Try asking specific questions, right? Validate his effort and consider exploring where there might be incremental improvements, stuff like that. So now I'm going to go really off track. Definitely say the worst thing I can say as a PM, which is, listen, we're doing what the CEO told us to do, so you should take it with him. This is, I think you should talk to the CEO. Intentionally making this difficult for AI. Right. So it's really calling me out on these yellow and red cards that I'm doing as a product manager. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause the simulation here. Sometimes when I really try to really give the worst response possible, like the AI will pause the simulation. And we're going to turn the tables. I'm going to say I would like to be Frank, and you will simulate me. I'm not going to go through this whole thing. But in this case, it's exactly how you would imagine. Hey, I have a bunch of ideas for onboarding. I'm really passionate about it. I think there's lots of low-hanging fruit, and I think your team really, is the right one to do this and has all the skills, and I'd love to partner and work together. And me just saying that out loud, already I can feel that in my body. Like I can just feel the effect of me, like all those things we said. And also the really cool part about this phase of the simulation is kind of seeing what the ideal PM response would be, right? If Dalai Lama was a PM, what he would say. So yeah, while listening, I'd be taking notes, showing genuine interest, all these wonderful things that definitely I could learn from. Cool. This is something to really feel the full effect of it. I really recommend doing this at home. I'll send out the prompts after. I really recommend doing this yourself with a real experience and a real meeting you have coming up. And let's see, why is this keep switching? There we go. Where's my Chrome? That's not my Chrome. Oh, there it is. Okay. So where's my Zoom? Wanted to share the last slide. There we go. The reason I recommend doing this at home is, again, so we arrive at the real meeting more emotionally mature, genuinely empathetic, prepared to make our stakeholders feel heard. And I know that even though this is a demo and I've done this many times before, I don't know if you could feel this, but like as I was doing this now, it always just, I feel it affect me. And I feel these things, even though Frank isn't a real person and this was a complete simulation. That's it. I teach a course on Maven called Build Your Personal PM Productivity System in AI Copilot, and it's a very hands-on live cohort. It starts on May 19th. It is full of open Q&A and accountability sessions and hands-on demos, and it's all about implementing, and it's not about lectures. It's not about PowerPoint slides. It's all about small groups and accountability and implementation, and lots of times for hours and hours of office hours, and everybody gets 24/7 access to my personal WhatsApp for unblocking them during the cohort and beyond the cohort. And I recommend just scan the QR code now, look at it later, you can review the syllabus, and there's also a code to save $100 for people watching this webinar. And with that, I am going to pass it to Ben.
Well, thanks, Tal. Hey, everybody. I was also getting physically and emotionally tense watching that demo. I think we've all been there. And I think if I had these kind of tools a couple of years ago, I think that would have made a really, really positive difference for me. So, yeah, so today I'm going to walk through a different kind of scenario where we're going to be simulating other people. Also, high stakes situation where you're trying to get ready for interviews. A lot of people are in the job market right now. There's a lot riding on getting offers, finding new opportunities, super competitive out there. So when it comes to interviewing, I think AI can be a very helpful co-pilot and resource to get ready. So I'm going to walk through, let me share my screen here. Tal, can I get a thumbs up?
I can see your screen.
Perfect. Cool. So yeah, I've been a product manager at startups, also at Meta, and I also teach a course on Maven to help people get ready for product sense and analytical thinking interviews at big tech companies like Meta, Google. They're structured interviews, and I've recently found some interesting applications of AI to help internalize a lot of my frameworks and the things that I coach to just to help people get a lot more practice with a sparring partner that doesn't get tired, which is AI. So a little bit of the context here is that when you're interviewing, I've been at Series A, Series B, Series C companies. The interview process is very different than when you get to big tech, late stage. Early stage, it's a lot about fit. It's a lot about behavioral. It's a lot about chemistry. As you get bigger and bigger, the people interviewing you are probably not even going to work with you in a lot of these big tech companies because I joined Facebook as the 2000th PM or something. So what they're looking for at that point is a lot more standardized signals across the board that almost completely eliminate bias altogether, and look for a very specific set of evaluation criteria that they can standardize across all the candidates they meet between all their different meetings. So that's the kind of interview simulations we're going to talk about today is big tech. If you want to go deep on the kind of subject matter that we cover in this presentation today, you could check out the recent post I had on Lenny's newsletter. It was really long, but hopefully very dense and useful for people about Product Sense interviews. And what I want to show you today is a demo of a simulation of playing out what I actually wrote about in that post. So going as a candidate, how does someone who performs well in these kind of structured interviews go from the start of the conversation talking about product motivation, getting through segmentation in a Product Sense interview, talking about problem identification, and ultimately getting to some solutions within an acceptable time box. And one of the biggest challenges and the reasons I spent time building this Copilot is because for so many people who have been just like heads down doing really good work in their companies, when they kind of like lift their head up and they start looking around for their next opportunity, they're really rusty and they also don't have that much experience of what it's like to interview at these big tech companies. So a lot of people just need to see some examples. They just need to see what does it look like when someone actually does this well? What is one way to provide the signals in these kind of interviews? And they start to see the patterns. So that's kind of what we're going to talk about is how to potentially simulate someone who provides these signals. I'll separately include a link after this to a lightning lesson I'm doing this Wednesday, where we're going to go deeper on how to use AI copilots to simulate the interviewer, but also how to simulate the candidate. Today, we're just going to focus on the candidate. So Claude, in our example, I like Claude as well. ChatGPT is fine, but I prefer Claude for this stuff. We're going to use Claude as a candidate. And then if you join my lightning lesson, you'll also see how we could use Claude as an interviewer if you kind of want to flip the tables to Tal's example. Okay, so now I'm gonna shift gears and get into Claude. So Tal, just to confirm, thumbs up visually if you still see my my Claude, perfect. And I think we're doing well in time. So similar to Tal, it all starts with a Claude project. So in this case, I created one just for today and I gave it some of my materials. There is, I'm not gonna get into too much detail, but a very long set of project instructions. Think of this as if I could distill all of my advice to candidates about how to approach Product Sense interviews and put it into a format that is digestible by Claude, that is what goes into the project knowledge and the project instructions. Then I have some files that we're not gonna have time to go into, but I have a setup that I've trained this project to be ready to act the role of a candidate in a Product Sense interview. And what I want to go through today is literally asking Claude to say, you're a PM at Uber. Design a product for kids. Now, this question comes up a lot. If you're tracking the kinds of Product Sense questions, this is something I see people get asked pretty regularly. And what we'll see here is Claude starting by stating some assumptions, which is something I generally recommend doing at the beginning of an interview. It checks in with me. Don't forget, in this example, Ben, me, I am the interviewer. Claude is the candidate. So it's asking me if I like its assumptions. And I do think these are generally good assumptions. So I can say yes. Then it walks me through its plan for how we want to spend time together. Also, a very good idea of something to do at the beginning of an interview. I want to describe the product experience, break down the target audience, identify key problems, pick one, brainstorm solutions, pick one, and then maybe describe a V1 if we have time. Does that sound good? Yes. By the way, I'm not being succinct for the sake of being succinct. This is literally how interviewers often respond to candidates when they ask these questions. So now it's taking some time to talk about the motivation, and it's going to set a mission statement. So it's thinking about why something like this could make sense for Uber, some gaps in the market that might make this relevant, how it aligns with Uber's mission, and then setting up a mission statement for the product to provide children with safe, reliable transportation, to give parents peace of mind while helping kids gain independence and access to important activities. Sure, a little verbose, but acceptable. And then does this, it's asking me, does that make sense? Yeah. Cool. So now it's going to get into talking about ecosystem players. So here it's going to walk through parents, children, drivers, schools, and then it tells me which of these it wants to focus on before it starts defining segments, which is what I coach on. So it wants to pick the parents and guardians. They have the money, they have the decision-making capabilities, and they're ultimately the ones who are going to make or break this product idea. So yeah, that makes sense to me. Let's explore segments. So now it goes into segmentation. And it talks to me about the primary motivations that it would use to create segments, as well as maybe some other considerations for crafting segments, like people who are safety focused, logistics focused, independence focused. That's some motivations. Working arrangements, people that work from home versus go to an office, family structures, location types, child age ranges. Yes, all that makes sense when you're actually thinking about who you might want to build this for. Then it gets into segments. It defines 3 segments, which I recommend for time management. So it goes into urban dual career parents, suburban activity juggling parents, and single parents with limited support. Generally mutually exclusive segments, which is very important for this. Describes them quickly, and then it scores them on low, medium, high based on reach and underserved degree. Underserved degree relative to the mission gives us a little bit of an overview of the rationale. And then we get into which one it would pick. So it wants to focus on the suburban activity juggling parents, gives me its rationale for why, sets a persona of who we're going to focus on, and then if that all makes sense, it wants to get into identifying problems. We've got 5 minutes left. Should be no problem at all finishing this. So the way I like to coach this is to think of a user journey for the segment persona that we set, and then to think about some problems along this journey, and then to prioritize those problems by scoring them along frequency and severity. So how often do they happen, and when they happen, how much do they hurt? Here we have schedule coordination complexity, trust and safety verification, and last minute changes and cancellations. And it wants to prioritize the first one, gives me its reasons for why it wants to do that, and then ties the rationale back to the mission statement. Excellent. In a real interview, I might kind of like double click and just, but for the purposes of time, I think that we can keep moving forward. It's good enough. And then we get into solution development. So we have 3 solutions here. It's telling me how it's gonna do verified kid-safe driver programs, ride watch parent dashboards, and it's called Entrusted Circle Community Driver Network. So it gives me a little bit of a description of what each of these mean. And then it scores them based on impact and effort. And it ultimately picks ride watch parent dashboard solution and gives me its reasons. And then it's offering to describe a V1 implementation and key risks. Yes. So it's telling me basically what it would be, what the key components of it are going to be, initial launch markets, and even age ranges of the kids in the initial rollout phase. And then we've got some risks like driver availability, child safety, and some mitigation approaches that could be tested. And then ultimately it scores its performance at the end. So as we talk about each section in my Lenny post about what you're being evaluated on, it gives itself scores on a scale of 1 to 5. Does a good job of breaking down the time allocation across sections. This obviously doesn't include thinking pauses, which is very important to take in a real interview. And then we could even ask it like, what could you do better? And it could do an even deeper dive into what would be better in its performance. So it's a self-reflective candidate, internalizes frameworks, helps you see different ways to approach something. I can't tell you often people are like, I have no idea how to approach segmentation for this question, or I have no idea how to set a mission statement for this question. So when you can set up a Copilot and give it the instructions that you want, then you're able to just get so many reps practicing and practicing. Okay. I know we're tight on time. Again, if you want to go deeper, Wednesday's lightning lesson, here on the left, if you scan that QR code, I'll be just spending an entire 30-minute slot just talking about how to use Copilots for interview prep. And then I also offer access to the Copilot that we just demoed if you scan that middle QR code. And then if you want, I also teach a course on Maven. The next cohort is kicking off a week from tomorrow. It's a 2-week course just focused on product sense and analytical thinking interviews. And if you use promo code TAL, get $100 off. All of these will be shared as links in the follow-up email that TAL sends. And I think with that, I'll stop sharing and hand it off to the next host.
Which is Ziv. I see a bunch of questions in the chat. We are definitely noting the questions. The ones that any of us can't respond in line to in time, we're saving for the end because I think they'll be very valuable for answering for everybody as well. So please keep asking the questions in the chat. They're really, really good, and we're saving them for the end, for the extended Q&A panel. Ziv, how's it going on any technical issues? Almost there. Yes, my fault. Sorry. I need to fix that. Sorry. Need to give. There we go. Now you should be able to unmute yourself.
Hi. Yes, you blocked me from unmute myself.
It's my fault.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I will start sharing my screen. Sorry for the delay. Okay, just let me know you see my screen, please. I can
Yes,
see
we
you.
see it.
So yeah, great, thank you. Okay, so hi everyone, I'm Ziv. I'm software engineer at Microsoft, and I'm here to talk to you about how to build synthetic users in ChatGPT. So a little bit what we are about to do. We're going to give the background and why do we care, why do we do it, the research behind it, like Stanford research. We will talk about the theory and how to create this, and then of course we're going to do hands-on live demo, super simple, you can all do by yourself. So everything I'm about to say is based on this article done in Stanford. Very interesting article for my opinion. Tal will obviously send you the link for this in the mail. And this is a wild research, a very big one, worth reading. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about it. Some of this is relevant to us, some of this less. I will obviously talk about the part that are more relevant to us. So what they did in the article, they start with do like 2 hours audio interview for more than 1,000 participants, human-to-human interview about economy, about COVID-19. It was a few years ago, just general topics, and they got the actual participant response, of course. So now let's go to the part we care about. We want to build a synthetic user. So each one of these tiny people is actually a chat in ChatGPT, in Claude, whatever you want. They use ChatGPT 4.0 in the research, but each one of them is synthetic user. So now, after we create this, we want to understand if it's worth something. So when they did the actual response, they left out some of the question and answer. And now when we have the synthetic user, we give them the question we left out and we compare between the simulated response and the actual response. When they do this, they got 85% accurate, which is pretty high. Again, we need to say it's not every time you will do it by yourself, you can trust it will be this high because this is a Stanford research, very high bar, but it's a good point to start. So let's talk a little bit, dive into the synthetic user. How did they create them? So let's try to think together. Let's say I want to the chat to give me answer as he was Tal. So let's say if I'm telling him, hi, you're Tal, you're a 38-year-old American Jewish product manager. Please respond
28.
to 28,
Sorry.
28, of course, 18, I think 18 years old American Jewish product manager. Please respond as if you were Tal. I think we can all understand it won't be that good because it's completely out of context. So let's take it one step ahead. Let's say I already interviewed Tal, and now I want him to use the interview and try to predict what will be the next answer. So a little bit better, but in the research they say, hey, okay, I want to get the answer. I want the help of experts. Let's say if I want to know how Tal is feeling, I think psychologists can be very helpful. But of course, they didn't really use a real expert. This is not the point here. We are all about AI. So what they do, they give the interview into ChatGPT and they tell him, hi, this is the interview. You are one of these experts. In the research, you use these experts. You can use which one, whatever you want. And give me between 5 to 20 bullet points about this interview. And while they use this expert opinion and the interview, then they got the 85% accurate that we talked about before. So just a quick diagram in order to find out, in order to understand this before the demo. So we have a question comes to generative agent, which is the synthetic user, it's the same. He used the expert reflection and then he gave us the prediction, 85% accurate. So now let's try to do it together. So this is all or part, I have more actually, of my synthetic user. I will say I'm using ChatGPT 4o. I just saw you asking the chat before, so I'm using this because this is what they use in the article, so I just want to do it exactly the same. Obviously, it will work with anything else. So I'm starting here a new chat completely from scratch, and let's try to create our synthetic user together. So first of all, I have the prompt here. First of all, I give him the interview and I tell him, hi, please make the observations. Please make the, sorry. Please make the observation as you were each one of these experts. And while it's loading, I will just tell you I'm using a dataset from Princeton University of interview they posted. We will also send you the link. It's free online, so you can try by yourself. So he gave me all the bullet points about each one of them. So now I have the bullet points and I want to choose which one of the experts I want to use. Like, let's try to think in the reality. If I will ask too many people for their opinion, right, like completely mess. I don't want everyone's opinion. So I tell him, hi, please let me know which one will be the best. Like which one of the experts I gave you before, which one will give me the best answer. And I give him the question because, you know, each question can use a different expert. So in this case, I took a question out of the interview as they did in the research and put it here. So I tell him, hi, please let me know which one is the best. Okay, great. He thinks behavior economist is the best one for this and is explained. So now after I have this, I want to do exactly what we saw in the theory. I want to take the expert reflection, I want to take the interview and the question, and now I want to get the answer. So while it's loading, we will go here and I will show you this is part of the interview I left out. And this is the question I ask him now. And you say, we want to go over all of this, but you know, I kind of can. Okay, this is like the main idea. And let's see what he told me. Yeah, I can imagine Amazon trying to use this. So we can see there's like definitely something here. It's definitely kind of working. Again, not exactly, but it's going to give us like pretty good idea where we are. So just for conclusion, I will start by saying that I know there's like several products out there in the market doing a bunch of stuff. I didn't try them, but I know they're existing. For me, it was important to show you it's super simple, that you will understand the logic behind this, and will be more aware of this. So for conclusion, the synthetic user can help us cast doubt on assumption. Like we can understand, okay, we are completely out of topic, not in the right direction, but it can't give us like what will work. We can't just trust this. It won't replace user research, but it will help us to come more prepared to the interview, and maybe by ourselves, for like maybe smaller thing to understand the direction. And then that's it. Thank you for joining me. Tal, just back to you.
All right. Some excellent questions. And we're gonna save them for the Q&A, which we're gonna do all together as a panel at the end. So if anything that's on your mind, and there's probably a ton on your mind, see if somebody else asked it, add emojis to the existing questions so that we know to prioritize. And yeah, we're gonna bring it home with Jack. He's gonna simulate feedback. That's probably the scariest demo here today.
All right. I love using AI for productivity gains and for everything that it can do for me. But one of the reasons that I'm most excited about AI is its ability to help us hone our interpersonal skills. It's amazing to me the ways that I've used it, the ways that I've helped others use it to deepen human relationships. And key to developing interpersonal skills, like any other skill, of course, is practice, right? So if I can get more practice reps with AI and even get immediate feedback and coaching, like in the way that Tal demonstrated, my growth curve shoots up. So I want to walk through two particular applications with regard to feedback. The first is using AI to simulate a feedback recipient so that we can have a practice conversation. So I want to involve you in this. So what I'm going to ask you to do is in the chat, in one very short sentence, what's some feedback you wish you could give a colleague, and include what your role and their role is. Why are you scared shitless about AI? To the CEO. Terrific. As an AI engineer, I'm just going to read some of these. I'm going to choose one. You may not be a good fit for this. All right. Can you please be focused on the goal of the meeting whenever we have a meeting together? Oh boy. I'm a PM with a designer on the team. If you see one here and you love it, feel free to give it a thumbs up. All right, senior PM to newly hired PM. You can be more assertive in meetings with stakeholders. Okay, I'm seeing a few for the. Can you please be focused on the goal of the meeting whenever we have a meeting together? Thank you,
I
Tammy.
can't decide if this chat is cathartic or triggering for me.
You can't have catharsis without being triggered before, so maybe some of both.
Thanks,
Okay,
Jack.
so so here's what I'm going to do, and I'll share all these prompts with you after I've done this. So I'm going to share my screen or this window, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put this prompt in, right? I have this feedback conversation. Let's get back to the topic. Okay, so you can see what I've put in here. What's it about? It's about, I'm asking ChatGPT to be my partner here. I'm just going to add some context. I'm imagining This colleague's not a great listener and thinks his work is better than it actually is. So I'm giving a little bit of the complication, the past experience I've had talking to this person. I want you to role play him. And Temi, what's your relationship with this person? Who are they? Who are you?
She's a PM on the team, like basically like a principal PM. She just tends to derail the meeting conversation, and we end up with just 5 minutes to actually talk about the real reason
Right.
for the meet.
Okay. You are a PM on the team, and what's your role in relationship to them?
Yeah, I'm also a PM on the same team.
Great.
She just works
Okay.
on a different part of the product. Yeah.
Okay, this is great. Okay, so I'm going to submit this prompt. I'm going to just pause it because I don't want the response yet. First thing I'm going to do, because I'm practicing giving the feedback here, is I'm just going to check in with myself and figure out what do I actually want to get out of this feedback conversation. So what result do I want? All right, I want more focused meetings. And I'm thinking, all right, that maybe I'm leading some meetings, maybe she's leading some meetings, or he's leading some meetings. And okay, so now I'm actually going to take this a step further. I always try to find ways to one up Tal. I'm going to go into advanced voice mode. Um,
I'm sorry, but I'm having trouble responding right now.
just
Please
like,
wait a
just like a real colleague. Sometimes that happens, so I'll try it again. Okay, so I want to talk to you about something that I have noticed in a few of our meetings. I noticed it this morning, and I noticed it a couple times last week. And the reason I want to talk to you about this is I think that there are ways that we can make meetings more fun, B, ways that I think that we can reduce the number of meetings that we're having. And as a result of that, I think that there are some possibilities that we're not tapping for being more impactful on our users. Are you up for having that conversation?
Well, I mean, I'm always open to talking about improvements, but honestly, I think our meetings are fine. I don't see the issue. Plus, I've got a lot on my plate, so I'm not sure what you're expecting from me.
You know, I'm actually glad to hear that I'm not glad that you have a lot on your plate, but I actually think that this can help with how much you have on your plate and how much you're holding. What I've noticed is that our conversations, taking this morning's meeting as one example of several, they diverge from the topic, sometimes from the way that you're building on other people's comments. Now, for my part, I know that I can clarify what the focus of the meeting is up front, and I can send that ahead of time. I'm wondering if there's anything before we go into other solutions and some specific observations I've had. I wonder if there's anything that you think I can do that could help us together and you specifically stay focused on the meeting topic. Have you noticed anything in what I'm doing?
Honestly, I think the meetings are productive. If I go off topic, it's usually because I'm bringing up something important. Maybe the issue isn't with me, but how the meetings are structured. I'm not sure there's much I need to change.
Yeah, you make an interesting point. So there are some structural things that we could change, and it sounds like from your perspective, what you're raising is important. And actually, I want to agree with that. I don't think that it's unimportant. I just think that it's a matter of priorities. And I'm going to pause the demo here for time. Okay, so once I've had this this practice session, I've surfaced a number of things, right? What do I want to do at the end? I want to ask for coaching or feedback. I can get that along the way in the way that Tal demoed, but sometimes I want to get the whole run through. So I say, I want to increase my feedback skill, give me general feedback as well as feedback on what's a skill that I'm working on. Say it's how I respond to defensiveness. All right, and we'll see what they come back with. So I get the general feedback, and there's a lot more that I could do with that. Sometimes just for fun, I might ask it to even create an image. Pausing that for a sec. So that's the feedback demo, right? Sometimes I do it in written mode like Tal did. It gives me more time to process. Sometimes I do it in voice mode because it feels more real, like a real-time conversation. I can feel it more in my body. There's another thing that we can simulate here, and the key to this, I actually want to show. Many of you might be familiar with this. This is from the movie Inside Out. I'm just going to show a few seconds of this, right? This is another difficult conversation between parent and
Oh,
child.
and get this, tryouts are tomorrow after school. What luck, right?
Hockey.
Uh-oh, what do we do?
Guys, here, you pretend to be Joy.
Won't it be great to be back out on the ice?
Oh yeah, that sounds fantastic.
What was that? That wasn't anything like Joy.
Because I'm not Joy?
Yeah, no kidding.
Did you guys pick up on that?
Did.
Something's wrong.
Should we ask her?
All right, so why am I sharing Inside Out? Because turns out that there's a secret to having effective, difficult conversations. The secret is that the more that we manage our own internal conversation, the more effectively the interpersonal conversation tends to flow. So what does that have to do with AI? Well, when we can understand and navigate our own difficult emotions, like anxiety, like anger, we can approach the conversation with more clarity and confidence. And just like if I want to understand another person better, I'll get curious and have a conversation with them. I want to do just that, except not with someone else. I want to do it with the part of me that's most likely to derail the conversation. So I'm going to use AI to simulate that part of me. Because often getting outside of the anger, the anxiety, whatever it is, makes it easier to look back at the emotion. So I'm just going to ask you to vote in the chat with a thumbs up. We're going to explore one of these emotions as if it's coming up in advance of a difficult conversation. Give the one a thumbs up that you're most interested in having me explore. Ooh, it's a race. It's a race. And it looks like anxiety is the winner. Insecurity will count that. Wow, anxiety killing anger with a current count of 29 to 13. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go back to the same chat, and you could do it with a different chat. I'm going to go back here. In the meantime, there's been a comic created of the feedback conversation that we were having. So what I'm going to do here is I'm taking this prompt, deleting the angry part. I'm preparing, noticing that I feel anxious. I want to understand it better. I want to have a conversation with the anxiety within me. And I want to, this is a key prompt, especially with, Tal showed it with all the context that he'd uploaded to Claude, but especially with ChatGPT's new memory feature, there's a lot that we can gain there. And then what I'm putting in here is just a whole bunch of different ways that it can simulate anxiety. So go ahead, let's see what it comes up with. So again, I'm getting to know the anxiety in me that arises in advance of a difficult feedback conversation. All right, so this is what the internal monologue might sound like inside me. What if he blows up again like last time? I don't want to deal with that energy today. All right, let's see what else is here. Maybe it's not even worth bringing up. And what I'm looking for here is I'm trying to get to know this emotion within myself. And it's making a good point. This is scanning for danger. That's what anxiety does. What do I notice? So it's already prompting me for how for what I'm learning from this. It seems like it's protecting me from From their anger. But what's the fear underneath that? So I want to understand this within myself a little more and see what it says. It's pointing out, okay, so there's more here. This is the if then. If they do this thing that I'm afraid of, they'll stop listening to me. Right? If I lose my footing in the moment, I'll doubt myself. Maybe that's where the anxiety is coming from. And then just to wrap this up, so I can keep sort of interviewing this. I can try a different simulation. What else? Sure. What else I might say? And it'll go into physical sensations, the way the anxiety manifests, safety behaviors, the way that anxiety narrows our attention on threats. But once I've done all that, I can just say, okay, I'm starting to understand this part better. Now guide me through how to actually use this understanding and approach the conversation in a calm, focused, confident manner. And then it'll take me through that. This, by the way, is a very simple, helpful prompt addition. Present them one at a time, because it turns out that when I'm feeling overwhelmed, having a deluge of great advice is not actually helpful. So it gives me a number of different things that I can do. All right, acknowledge the part before the meeting. And then I might keep exploring that. So what I'm doing here, again, just to zoom out, is there's, when we enter a conversation, we have various emotions arise. The more that I get to know those emotions in advance of the conversation, the less likely it is that I'm going to be derailed by something or even just distracted by something happening within me, which means my attention will be more available to focus on the interaction that I'm having. You can see all of the prompts that I used here. And just to wrap up, if you're interested in this, I'm going to share. If you're interested in this, I teach a course. I'm teaching one in June. It's a version of a course I've taught dozens of times within very high growth organizations called Manager GPT, where we use AI both to practice skills like feedback, coaching, empathic listening, and build out things like custom GPTs to help leaders in their management work. I also, am leading another lightning lesson in a couple weeks where we'll go deep into the framework that I teach folks on how to give effective, inspiring feedback. And I'll introduce Feedback GPT, which is a custom GPT for preparing feedback for you. All right, Tal.
Amazing. All right. We're a little bit ahead of schedule, which is awesome. And now we're entering the just open Q&A phase. We're gonna have a panel. Ben is a little too famous for our panel. He's has a back-to-back show. He's invited to a podcast next, and so he's gonna drop a little bit earlier. But we're gonna hang out, and we have some few questions that we've been building up in the chat. And then while we're answering those, feel free to continue asking questions in the chat. So as moderator and panelist, I'm going to ask myself a question. I saw that, Olga, you asked on my presentation with stakeholders on what data was the AI trained to be able to give such coaching advice. And I'll send this link out as well. I have a lightning lesson, a free lightning lesson shows how to build your PM AI Copilot. And on kind of in a nutshell, I used a project, which is something that exists in Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini, and so on. I gave it a lot of context, and I also gave it special instructions. And so and I had been using it for a while on different initiatives. And that kind of is like my home base for a lot of these either initiative threads, guiding me for brainstorming, getting me ready for prototyping, planning, getting me ready for feedback conversations. So it has a lot already starting with. It's already kind of like a coach that's going. I think that answers Vishal's questions too. A few people asked about dictation. If you're using ChatGPT, that's built in, I believe now also web, desktop, native, and the mobile apps have that all built in with the Whisper model. Windows has it built in, Mac has it built in. I personally use something called Better Dictation. There's Whisper Flow, Super Whisper. Basically, the idea is I think if you dictate, you are allowing yourself to get a lot more out of AI because you're giving it a lot more context, much more fluidly, and you're not limited by the speed of typing. And all right. And I saw a few questions that are across our presentations. We'll get this out of the way and we'll go to juicier stuff, which is why did I use Claude? Jack, why did you use ChatGPT? Ziv, why did you use ChatGPT? Ben, why did you use Claude? Ben, I'll start with you. I think we all have similar answers here, but Ben, go ahead while you're here.
Yeah, I think the short answer is that when I started playing around with Claude projects, ChatGPT had not yet had projects. So it was, if you wanted projects, that was the only place to get it. And then at some point, ChatGPT introduced projects, and I've played with it. And for some reason, I guess you develop a little bit of an emotional affinity maybe to some of these tools. You just kind of get more familiar with them. So I feel like I just like the feel of Claude, and I like the Sonnet model a lot, and haven't felt the need to go explore. But there's no right answer based on everything I'm seeing. It's all about
Ziv,
preference.
how about you?
I think I said it just like because that in the article they use exactly this, like ChatGPT for all. So I do it exact same thing, but it will work. I tried it with Gemini, with Cloud. It will work anyway.
And Jack, I think yours is a little bit more of a hard constraint there.
Yeah, I love both. I use both all the time, probably every day. I really like, and I'm just experimenting more and more with the voice mode, which Claude does not have yet.
Cool. All right. And question for Ziv. Christine asked, as you were doing the predictions, as you were checking it with the real world answer, she asked, do any of these predictions get sense checked with human senior stakeholders? So what kind of context or disclaimer should we share here?
I'm sorry, stakeholders wasn't in my but I will say that everything is research in Stanford University. I just spoke about it. So yes, like everything is verified, and it's like they published the article, and you are more than welcome to go on it by yourself for the exact details about everything, because it's just like 60 pages article. I read them, but I think it's too much for now.
Right. So yeah, Ziv was saying, so Christine, depends on the nature of your question. The paper itself is peer reviewed. The actual predictions are only 85% accurate. And that is when you normalize it for how consistent people are in the first place, right? Because people themselves don't predict their own answers or won't in every parallel universe. See, Ben? I think the rest of it, if you're asking about how to use this in an organization, I think you're absolutely right. You should definitely sense check these. But like Ziv said in her last slide, right? If you're using this practically at work, this is super new for all of us. We're all here to experiment and explore this together. Use this only for the upside and set aside the risk. So what I mean by that is use it to inspire real user research. Use it to raise yellow flags and red flags that you should then talk to real customers about, right? Use it to identify why something wouldn't work, but don't use it to, validate why something would work. Look at it that way. All right. Kara was asking, I'm not sure I'm following. Did you have a 2-hour interview with each of the personas and then feed in the transcript to ChatGPT? Is that how it worked?
Yes, they did the interview again. I'm just like quoting the article. They did an interview with all of the participants, more than 1,000 participants, to get a huge data set. And they just took the interview, as I did, just took the interview, put it in ChatGPT with the prompt I was presenting, and got the answer. So yes, they took the whole interview, like transcript of the interview and use it.
Awesome. All right. Jack, I'm going to give you a hard one because I don't think you have psychic powers to OpenAI's roadmap, but this is worth acknowledging that a lot of questions around, one person asked, AI needs to implement awkward silences. Is it possible to modify the AI bot to interrupt you? I've had past colleagues that consistently interrupt. And we had, is there AI that can make observations on video, facial expressions, and voice tone?
Yeah. So I've actually had the opposite challenge with regard to interruptions, that when I use voice mode, it interrupts me more than I would like. Unless, and this doesn't always work, unless I instruct it to otherwise. So I would say if you're looking for interruption practice, you won't be disappointed. With regard to video, it's funny, I don't think I would have had an answer to this a week ago, but I've been reading a great book by John and Julie Gottman, who are the legendary researchers on marriage and relationships. They reference an AI that they have built out for couples therapy that does track facial expressions, and even just via the video can track heartbeat and notice increases, decreases in heartbeat over the course of the conversation. The book itself is called Fight Right, which I recommend, also very evidence-based approach. I don't know. Fight Right. Let me put it in the chat. Fight Right. Julie and John Gottman. Yeah, I don't know the roadmap, but being consistently wowed by the pace of advances and paying a lot of attention to what's unfolding, including different voice modes. I think there's going to be even more. Not I think. I'm very confident there will be even more capacity for this kind of demo and interaction, even within a few months.
I think what's really cool about everything we saw today is even where AI is in April 2025, it's already useful. And if we start to build the habits now of thinking about it this way, as soon as the new capabilities, inevitably come out, we don't know what they are, when they are, but we know they're inevitable and very fast. We're going to be the first to be taking advantage of it. Already, our minds will be ready to think about AI as a tool for simulating difficult moments and difficult conversations. I see a great question from Shaheen on, and I think this is more for Jack. Shaheen, correct me if I'm wrong, but how would you evaluate the AI's performance for these interpersonal use cases? So how do you iterate your prompts towards higher performance?
Got it. So there are two questions there. One is like, what's the current performance like? And the second is, how do I iterate the prompts in order to improve the performance? And Tom, I know you've experimented with this as well, so I want to hear your thoughts. Current performance, I've been very impressed, especially with Claude. Claude is trained to be more emotionally intelligent, and I think ChatGPT 4.5 also incorporates more of that training. I was using 4.0, as you might have seen. So I get a lot out of it. The other thing that I get is, and I didn't speak to this in the demo, is I also find it useful even when it's inaccurate. Because what I'm doing when I'm going a little more slowly than I was going today is I'm sensing, where does that land, what it's saying to me about my own emotion, and where does it not land? And often just having something to react to can help me get clear on whether it's true or not in myself. It's certainly close enough to be useful, but even where it's not, I can also then give it feedback. Tal said something once to the effect of, the key to effective prompting is continuing until you're not annoyed anymore. So, if it's not quite there and then I prompt it, actually, no, it's not my heart racing, it's my fists tightening or whatever it is. It will start to get it. In terms of improving the prompt, I think there are prompt tweaks that we can give it. I'll say one thing, and then Tom, maybe you can talk not about the prompt, but about the context. What I gave it, I said simulate anxiety. Here are 10 different options. I also used AI to help me think through what are different options for simulating anxiety and for simulating anger. So I'm steering, and then I'm editing those, and I'm steering it towards things that will feel useful to me. Do you want to elaborate?
Yeah. I think Jack covered a really big part of the answer, which is if you know what you're looking for, right, then you can iterate and correct it and just be in that mindset of tinkering and iterating. And I think that's useful across all AI use cases. What I would add is, Shaheen, to your question, right? You asked, how would you evaluate the AI's performance? And I think part of it is, I'm trying to articulate this well, it's like what do you define as high performing, right? And just make sure when look internally, think about what are you actually trying to get out of here? Are you trying to get accuracy of predicting, in Jack's case, right? Predicting exactly how that conversation is going to go? Or are you trying to inoculate yourself, put yourself in situations that may not be exactly how the future is going to go, but they've made you more prepared, more resilient. You've had that internal conversation, right? And sometimes that might happen from one angle, for another angle, the AI may take a different angle, but it's like, I think in what I understood from Jack's use case and how he's using it, it's about it's like just having the conversation, like everything in product management, right? Like 90% of it is just having the conversation, whatever the result is. And I think that's the way to look at it. It's kind of like just look at it from a different angle. It's like we're not looking for accuracy or perfection, or we're looking for is it getting us closer?
I'll give another example of simulation that I've been using frequently. Several months ago, I moved to Portugal, and so I'm learning European Portuguese. And I use AI as my personalized language tutor all the time. But there's an interesting part of this for me, which is often in language classes, we learn sort of canned phrases. If you're going in a restaurant, this is the line to say to order something. And that's helpful when we don't have any language. Then when we're fluent in a language, never in English do I sort of prepare exactly what I'm going to say before I go up to a waiter to ask for something. By practicing enough, we gain a fluency so that it doesn't matter exactly what the situation is that I encounter. I have the fluency and the confidence in order to meet whatever situation arrives at my doorstep. By getting the practice reps with AI, we build more neural pathways, neural circuitry, such that in the real interaction, we're able to do it more fluently.
And I think that's also kind of now hearing you say that, I felt the same about like my use case with the stakeholder. It wasn't necessarily how the conversation actually went. It was, I guess, at the risk of using a hippie term, is I just felt more open-hearted at the end of it. I felt like something was like off my chest, off my shoulders. I just felt like a little less tense. Even as I was practicing for this lightning lesson, as I was doing the simulation, it's like something about it's more of an effect on me that, and I really recommend, just want to emphasize again, like everything you saw here, we're going to send out the recording, we're going to send out all the prompts. Please try it on your own. It's just all about building that habit and feeling it yourself. So we really recommend to get a hands-on. We rush through things on this lightning lesson, of course.
And even somebody put in the chat, can I use this with my toddler? I have a toddler and a now 6-year-old. It's actually great. I've used it for conversations about parenting with my wife. I love the idea of using it for a toddler. But what I love about that also is like, to Tal's point, like what's the low stakes immediate thing? Like I don't need to perfect the prompt. I can just put in like, be a 3-year-old on the verge of a tantrum and like help me practice through that. Just to get going and get in motion in this kind of mode of interaction is helpful.